Have you ever heard of Donatello? No, I'm not talking about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. I'm talking about one of the most famous Italian Renaissance sculptors that have ever lived. Stay tuned to learn more. I've created a table of contents to help organize the information contained in this presentation. There's a total of 11 slides. Donatello was born sometime in 1386. There isn't any concrete records that show exactly when he was born because it was the 13th century in Italy. What is a for sure concept is that he was born in Florence, Italy, to a skilled craftsman. Starting out young, working on delicate things with his family and family's acquaintances is what started Donatello off to such a great start. By the time he was 17, he was working with Gibralti on the first doors of the baptistry. He studied with him until 1407, when he thought it was his time to go out and make wonderful masterpieces, which he did, starting off with the first David. Some of his famous works were David, St. Mark, St. John the Evangelist, St. George, and the Feast of Herod. Most of these pieces were created for religious regions or for people of higher power in the church. After all, this was the Renaissance. Donatello's first David statue was created out of marble in 1408, and the second one was made out of bronze in 1416. Both pieces were created for the same reason and do look a little similar. The marble David was seen as both powerful religious and political hero. The statue has hints of the Gothic stance, but also suggests a classical stance. The Gothic stance is to be a trace of Gibraltar's influence on the young Donatello. His face seems to be blank and almost as if he doesn't realize Goliath's head is beneath his feet. On the other side of the spectrum, the second David was created out of bronze. This statue is famous for being the first freestanding bronze statue of a naked male. There is a very large debate over who requested for the second David to be created, but the Medici family is accredited for either purchasing or possessing the rights to the statue. This statue doesn't differ much from its marble copy. David is still the young hero that defeated Goliath. Many religious parties believe that the nakedness of the young David shows that only with the help of God he defeated this monstrous person. Restoration of both pieces occurred in June 2007 and continued until November of 2008. The bronze version now resides in Florence along with Michelangelo's David. St. Mark was created in 1411 and finished in 1413. This statue is made entirely out of marble and stands 7 feet tall. The original piece stood outside of a church in Florence, but now it's being preserved in a museum. A replica was put in its original placement. With this statue, Donatello modified his method of stance of the male he was sculpting. He used the same foundation that was used in both statues of David, but St. Mark is a little more realistic and relaxed. This style was called contrapposto. Donatello also created this statue with a perspective that someone who was walking by or under the statue could view it how Donatello imagined it. This technique was adopted by many other artists during the Renaissance. He also emphasized St. Mark's clothes. Instead of creating St. Mark to be a human figure with some clothes on, Donatello created his pose to be as if St. Mark was the next top model. We can see that his right leg is supporting most of the weight, but his left leg is still detectable, just as if he were a real person. Some say that this statue marks the breakaway point from the Gothic style of sculpting. St. John the Evangelist was created in 1410 and finished later on in 1411. This sculpture was also created out of marble and stands 6.8 feet tall. St. John was the first of 3 evangelists that were eventually created. The three evangelists were collaboratively composed by Donatello and three other sculptors. The statue almost seems to set a stepping stone for Donatello's rival, Michelangelo. Like Donatello's previous sculptures, St. John has developed a facial expression and an identifying stance. Most notably is his hand placement on the book. Perspective is one of the three most important things Donatello always seemed to master. Donatello knew the placement of the statue and designed it accordingly. His legs and thighs were disproportionate to accommodate viewings from below eye level. In 1586, St. John was removed from his place and was relocated to its present location in the Museum of Opera del Duomo. St. George is another marble statue by Donatello that was created in 1417. He stands at 6.7 feet tall. The story behind St. George is the typical dragon and castle bedtime story that we were all told as children. A dragon had been terrorizing a kingdom, and the townspeople were making sacrifices to keep the beast at bay. First it was animals, and then it turned into human sacrifices. One day, the king's daughter was elected for tribute. Thank goodness St. George comes along and kills the beast, and the princess gets to live. St. George is still a religious inspiration for both Christian believers and non-Christian believers. St. George was created to give the young people a good role model and encouragement to get married young instead of waiting. His features are strong and masculine, but at the same time delicate and youthful. His stance is like St. John's with the leaning of the left leg and his arms around his shield. The Feast of Herod was a bronze relief sculpture created in 1427. The relief depicts the beheading of St. John the Baptist after Salome asked for his head on a platter. Donatello used high and low relief skills to make it appear as if parts of the sculpture were closer or farther than they actually were. Donatello was the only artist to use relief to determine perspective. Donatello died December 1466 at the age of 80 years old. He died of unknown causes. The pieces that he was working on just before his death were finished by one of his understudies. His burial site is in the Basilica of St. Lorenzo. All right, guys, here are my sources. Feel free to look up any of them if you want to learn any more about Donatello. He was a great Italian artist, and I just love his pieces. That's why I had to do my project on him. But if you fell in love with him like I did, feel free to search the internet and learn more about him. All right, thank you.